Welcome back to the channel, everybody. How you doing? I just want to say I appreciate you guys being here. Today we're going to talk about something really special. A very what the F kind of video. And we're going to talk about The Girl Next Door by Jack Ketchum. So this was on my list of top 10 most disturbing books I wanted to read. I regret that now. This book is super effed up. Like, this is super effed up. Like, I'm not kidding. This book is rough. Like, so this is my first time ever reading Jack Ketchum. First, we're going to talk about some really good things. Jack Ketchum can write a book. He writes coming of age very, very well. He writes kids really, really well. And just the way that he writes just scenes, really, really good. This man can write. So first impression, I'm definitely going to read more of him. With that being said, this book is rough. And I'm not saying that lightly. Like, I read like Lolita, and then I read like Blood Meridian. And those books were pretty disturbing. Parts of like Lolita, the whole plot of Lolita is just disturbing in itself. And Blood Meridian is just the sheer amount of just violence in that, where you almost become numb to that part. But The Girl Next Door there was parts when I was reading this book where I had to look away. I want to tell you, I've seen a lot of really disturbing movies. I thought I read some really messed up books. But this was rough. This was truly rough. This involves children, which is already a no-no. And also, I gotta just say this now. Dude, screw Ruth. I hate that woman. I hate her. I absolutely hate her. I hate her so much. I usually am not a very hateful person, but Ruth, she deserves the hate. I have the main character named David. Now, this is all written in first person, and this happens over one summer. I'm not gonna go into detail about it because it's just a lot. There is two girls that move in. The girl next door move in next to David, and you meet Meg and Susan. Susan is the younger sister, and Meg is the one that goes through hell, the best way to describe it. The way that Jack Ketchum writes this book, it's just insane. You don't get into anything until probably the first 100 pages is where you don't. But what happens in it is he really does just leave little tiny hints of what is going to be coming. Talks about the basement. And in the house of Ruth's house, she has a couple kids of her own. And in the basement, because this book takes place in the 1950s, like 1958. And during the 50s, a lot of houses had like little bunkers in the basements, where it's kind of like another basement inside of a basement, where you would protect yourself from, nukes and stuff, because it was during the 50s and this was during like the Cold War era. So a lot of that was going on, and Ruth's house was like that. And let's just say that's where the things start happening. There is people that love these kind of things. We call it torture porn, and that's kind of what this is in a way. But the way that he writes it, so people, this is going to be really weird. This is going to be really, really hard to explain it. But this is how my mind works when it comes to horror movies. There are people who love torture porn, and even if it's bad, they just love it because they're showing the scenes of what people like. But if you do it in a way where it's like, if it makes the plot of the movie good, or even for the book good, and just makes it better, then I think there's nothing wrong with it. So like this book, for example, is torture porn, but it's written in such a good way. The way that he wrote it makes sense. Hopefully that makes sense. Where he didn't write it just for the shock value. He didn't write it just be like, I'm gonna shock you. No, there's a whole story with it too, and that's what's really cool about this book. I guess cool is not the right word, but this book is just rough. It's really, really rough. And I had to read a romance novel after this because of how dark this book is and how far this book really goes. And the worst part is, this involves children. Like, not like teenagers. This involves 12-year-olds. The way that this one woman can corrupt all these kids, and you're through the eyes of David the whole time. And there's moments in this book where you're like, David, you need to do something. The way that Jack Ketchum writes David, because this is all written in first person too, so you're truly through the eyes of only David and what's his thoughts process of it all. David is he just doesn't understand a little bit of it, which makes sense in a way because he is just a kid. Like, he knows this is wrong, but he also doesn't understand why it's wrong, if that makes sense. And then he has scenes where he asks his dad, should you ever hit a woman? Like that. Should I ever smack a woman? And his dad gives him the most vague answer. One of the most 50s answers ever. He's like, you shouldn't, but you should if she does this, this, and this, but you shouldn't, and stuff like that. So it leaves David like, what do I do? You know, it's one of those things. And just the brutality of this book is just insane. And with this book too is like, since it's written in the first person, there's a scene in this book, and I'm so thankful Jack Ketchum did not write it. I think if he wrote that whole scene out, I probably would have DNF'd the book because it would have been brutal. But in the book, he even says, he's like, this is way too much for me to write. So you can just imagine what's going to happen. And that's all I needed. Because in my head, I knew exactly what was going to happen. And anyone who read The Girl Next Door, you know what I'm talking about. This book is so brutal. Like, holy crap. It's just so brutal. But the way that Jack Ketchum writes is just so good. Like, I gave this book a 5-star because of how good this book is. But the story of it is rough. It's rough. It kind of reminds me of a movie. Now, I don't recommend people watching this movie. I watched it, not on purpose. I heard that it's like a horror movie, and it's spooky season, so I wanted to watch. I watched it last year. When I watched it, after I got done, I was like, that was traumatizing. That was a lot. It's called I Spit on Your Grave. Now, I'm going to tell all you guys, do not watch that movie. It's a lot. Unless like the scenes, unless like disturbing stuff doesn't really affect you, then I guess, but I wouldn't recommend it. That movie actually reminded me a lot of this book in a way, and it's really sad that I got that idea. Like that movie all came back into my mind after I read this book, and I was like, oh great. So there is those elements, but this book is so well written. And now this is gonna be a fact, but in this copy of the one I have, Jack Ketchum actually goes into detail of how he got the idea of this, and apparently this is based off of a true story. And the story is written by, he read it in a book called Blood Letters and Bad Men. Now, there's a little bit of me that kind of wants to read it because I just want to know like the true facts, but I might wait for a while because this book is a lot. With that being said, he said he read that book and it just kept coming back to his mind. And it's the same, every single thing that he wrote in this book is just like the cast was real people. He just changed the names and everything, if I remember correctly. I mean, granted, I haven't read that other book, but this is all written through the first person of David, and he wrote first person so he has the excuse to say, I don't need to write this scene, and I could just tell the audience, I'm not writing the scene, you already know what's going to happen. And he does that a couple times in this book, which was just so bizarre. With the actual event that happened, he said when he read that book, it gave him the idea, but he wrote it based off of New Jersey, where he's from, because his mother passed away, so he was like cleaning out her house, and he got the idea of that, but he wrote it for the 50s instead of the 60s. And my thought process is, it blows my mind that before cell phones, how much more brutal and unsafe people were because we didn't have cameras everywhere. Like, if you really think about it, now this is how I'm looking at it, and I'm not much of a guy that watches the news or anything, because the news always freaks me out, but I don't see a lot of like these serial killers anymore, right? We don't have the Ted Bundys or anything like that. But during like the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, even in the 60s and the 50s, we had all these like big serial killers. It's because like technology just wasn't there. Like the cameras were not the same compared to like, we all have cameras now in our hands constantly. I'm using a camera right now, I'm using my phone. So in my head, when I think about how brutal these times were, it's just like, oh my gosh, it's terrifying. It really truly was terrifying. And so when I read this book, it just really made me feel bad. And the worst part is, I just really did sat there and hope she's gonna make it out alive. That's all I was thinking throughout this whole book. Like I said, if I had to give a rating to this book, I'd give it a 5 out of 5. This book was really, really good. It was just brutal. And I'm gonna be honest, I usually try to recommend books for everyone, but I can't recommend this book. I cannot. Like, if you are into very disturbing stuff, read it. I'm not telling you to read it, but sure, go ahead, do it. Even though I just said that. But it's like, I'm not going to recommend this for anyone. This is something I would not recommend on anyone. And if you're curious, like I was curious, and I was like, I gotta read this. Yes. And this book is rough. Now, I plan on reading more Jack Ketchum because I really do like his writing. And I know what kind of writer he is now. So just from this book, so I know what I'm dipping my toes into. He's definitely not an author I could read back to back. Like, that's for sure. I was talking to one of my buddies at work about it, and because he just read it, and he was talking about how it's super scary and disturbing. I'm like, it has nothing. It has the scene in it, but that's just a weird scene. That's so weird. This is just brutal. That scene, Stephen King tried to make it like a huge connect. It was just, I'm not even gonna try to explain it. It's just such a weird scene. But the girl next door, oh, brutal. If you guys made it to the end of the video, I do appreciate it. I know this video is a little bit more gloomy. I'm usually more, oh, ha ha ha, more happy and stuff. But like, it just, the book itself is just so brutal now. It's like, oh my gosh. But if you guys made it to the end of this video, I do appreciate it. Have you guys read The Girl Next Door? If you have, let me know down below. Or have you read any other Jack Ketchum books? I would love to know down below. I think the next one I'm going to read is Off Season, which I think is like his first novel he wrote. It's all cannibalism, so I'm like, oh, why am I doing this to myself? Anyways, though, that might be a winter read. We'll see how I'm feeling. If you guys have read The Girl Next Door, let me know down below what you guys like about it. Do you guys know what scene I'm talking about? Or do you not know? Or is there another scene where you're like, oh, that was rough? I'd love to know down below if you liked this book or not. And last but not least, make sure you guys stay safe, stay humble, and tell someone you love them. I'll see you guys in the next video. Stay weird.